Alright, if you've ever made any jewelry or anything with chrome and Blender, I'm pretty sure often you find asking yourself why it looks so perfect, almost like it was made in a computer, right? And I think nowadays, us 3D artists would want to make stuff in 3D space and computer, AI generated, which is where things are going, but we still want them to look real. And when you use regular chrome material and Blender, you often see it as in, I don't know how I feel about it. Well, let me tell you, you're not alone. Today I'm actually going to show you the material that I use to make my jewelry designs, or pretty much anything with a metal surface, look like it's been worn, like it has imperfection, like it's belonged to the real world. What we're going to be doing today actually looks like this. So you can see this is not just the regular bring up the metallic, lower down the roughness on the principal BSDF. This material actually reacts to the edges, the dents, and the tightness and the actual geometry of the object. So if you're into jewelry design, Blender materials, car related stuff, clothing brands, you're actually in the right place. And guys, if this helps at any point, a like and a subscribe actually helps me out a ton. And it helps me keep sharing stuff like this. Now that being said, let's jump right into the video. All right, let's do this a bit different today. I'm actually gonna show you each node that we're gonna need to make this whole material come together. All right, so what you're gonna need is a principal BSDF, which should be added by default when you create a new material. You're gonna need a noise texture, math node, set it to multiply, bevel node, geometry node, vector math node, set to dot product, 8 map range, 8 color ramp, and a bump node. Once you have those nodes down, we're ready to just pretty much connect everything. Now, for anyone that wants to skip rebuilding this from scratch, I'm putting the project file and the STL ring on my Patreon, which is not required, but if you want to save some time, it'll definitely help you. All right, so now let's connect everything, and I'm going to try to explain to the best of my abilities how each node is pretty much working here. The first thing is we're going to go ahead and connect our noise texture. So FAC over to the top value of the math node. So now the noise texture pretty much just adds textures, noise onto the whole product imperfect. It's not gonna be solid, smooth. So if you control shift and left click on the noise texture, you get to see all these noises added onto the ring. And if you bring up the scale, it just adds more of it, which we're gonna do later on. For now, we're just gonna keep it at default. Our principal BSDF, by the way, has a metallic all the way up and roughness at 0.1, so keep that like that for now. And then we're gonna go ahead and connect our math node, which we're gonna go ahead and set it over to multiply. What multiply does is pretty much it just makes the noise texture be more subtle. I'll show you later on what that looks like. And make sure the value should be at 1 or 0.1 by default. Make sure you set it to 0.005, and then the value of the multiply, we're gonna go ahead and connect it to the bevel. What the bevel does is it takes the edges of the product and it makes them smoother. So it's gonna take the whole product, the overall of the product, and it's just gonna make the edges smoother. Once you have that with your geometry, which the geometry just tells Blender where the flat surface of product are facing, you're gonna take the normal and you're gonna of the geometry, you're gonna connect it to the bottom vector of the vector math, and the normal of the bevel onto the top of the vector math. The vector math, again, make sure it's set to dot product, and the value of the dot product, which by the way, the dot product just tells Blender that we're going to keep one and we're going to eliminate the other one. So the bevel, it's gonna keep it at the top, so we're only want the smooth edges to be shown, and the flat surfaces of the product, we don't want them to be shown, which is why it's connected on the bottom input of the vector math. So then when you connect the value of the vector math or the dot product onto the value of the map range, which a map range just allows you to filter out everything but the edges of the product. When you play with these values, it's gonna play with how much of the edges will show. So then when you have this, you want to connect the result over to the base color, and right now we're not seeing much of it because we're also haven't played with the values. But then really quickly we're gonna take the color ramp and we're gonna connect the result over to the FAC of the color ramp, and the color from the color ramp is going to be connected onto our bump node, and the normal of the bump node onto the normal of the principal BSDF. And if you look at what we got going on over here, you can see some of the bumps happening right now. So this is when we're going to play with the values, and I'm going to show you everything all over again, right? So for the scale, you want to bring it up. So you want the texture, as you can see, you want the texture to be very, very small. And I like to do anywhere between 700 and 1,000. So bring it all the way up. I think this also depends on the scale of your product, of your object. So this could be something that you could play with, but just make sure that I want the texture to be very, very small. Once you have this, you could keep everything else the same. Again, the multiply, if you keep it at default, which I think default is like a 1, is not going to do much for you. So that's why I like to do a 0.005. And as you can see, now you can see more the texture showing up here. And then over here on the map range, if you play by holding shift, right? Why isn't it showing? Oh, there you go. It disappeared for a second. But if you play with by holding shift, if you play with the range, as you can see right there at a 0.9, it's taking everything on the product. If you lower it, it just takes the edges. It just detects the edges even more. But even though I like to keep it at 0.9, very high, because later with this color ramp, we're going to be able to adjust it, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a bit. So now we're gonna take the minimum and we're gonna put it at -0.2. Look at the inside, look at these small edges. So if you play with that as well, so you can see the edge is more strong right now. The effect of the noise texture, it's way stronger. So that's why I like to do a -0.2, and it just keeps it there. It's still very strong, but this is where the color ramp comes in. So the color ramps allows you to play with how much of the edge you want there, or how much of the smoothness you want in there. So all you have to do is bring the white a little bit in, like so. And if we get closer in here, you'll see it even better. Check this out. So if you bring this in, so you can see it's making it a whole lot more subtle. I personally like to keep it strong a bit, so I like it somewhere right there. This should, yep, just look at how nice and detailed this look. Even from far away, you can see that there is definitely some imperfections going on in there. And if you zoom in, let's say you want to do a close-up shot of the product, you can still see those imperfections in there, and they don't look too overpowering, and they don't look CGI, they don't look computer generated. Okay, and then the bump pretty much just makes the surface have bumps where the wear and tear effect is applied, which is why it looks even cooler. It looks almost like if it was modeled onto the ring, but it's not. And by the way, if you want to learn how to make jewelry in Blender, I already have a video on how to make custom ring using pretty much any logo, and how to make a custom pendant as well. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link on the description down below as well. Now keep in mind, any small changes that you add to this material could drastically change the way that the material looks. Now if this video was helpful to you and you want to see more like it, make sure you drop a like down below. That'll definitely help me out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.